support this. I'd like to yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 4 minutes.
I thank the gentlelady from Indiana. I would note, as a point of clarification, the legislation on the floor, there's two main parts. The first part that the gentleman from Massachusetts is referring to did not go through committee. He is correct. The part that dealt with the issue with respect to ICE detainers relative to, no, hold on. The part that deals with the ICE detainers relative to theft, burglary, et cetera. The second half of the bill that deals with standing for states to be able to get into court to challenge the administration's lawlessness with respect to parole and asylum, that part did go through committee and was, in fact, debated on that part. But again, just trying to set the record straight, I'm acknowledging that the first half didn't. But the first half, the part that deals with theft, burglary, so forth, so that we can have an ICE detainer placed on someone, is designed to deal with, in part, what we're dealing with in response to Laken Riley. And what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle do not want to talk about, and what we will not hear the President of the United States tomorrow night in this room talk about, is Laken Riley. My colleagues doth protest too much about a bill that is named after someone who is harmed, given the extent to which I think there's like a whole website dedicated to the bills that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle find a way to name after somebody in the wake of some emergency. The fact here is we have a young woman who is 22-year-old who was killed by someone who was released under mass parole by the policies of this administration, by this president, by this Secretary of Homeland Security, only the second secretary to be impeached in the history of our country, because he has violated his oath of the Constitution, ignored the laws, and endangered the American people. The simple fact is, the President of the United States and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the radical progressive Democrats that are trying to remake America with wide open borders, do not want to talk about Laken Riley. They do not want to talk about Kayla Hamilton, a 20-year-old with autism in Aberdeen, Maryland. A 17-year-old illegal alien from El Salvador was released into the country as an unaccompanied alien minor, killed Kayla Hamilton, raped and beat her to death in her home in July of 2022. I do not believe that the President of the United States or my Democratic colleagues want to talk about Kayla Hamilton. I don't believe that my Democratic colleagues want to talk about Aiden Clark, a 10-year-old boy in Ohio, killed by a 35-year-old illegal alien who struck a school bus full of kids. I don't think they want to talk about the 2-year-old in Montgomery County, Maryland, who was killed by somebody from Venezuela who was similarly released under mass parole under the policies of this administration, under this president, under this Secretary of Homeland Security. They don't want to talk about that 2-year-old. They don't want to talk about the adolescent girl raped by a Honduran who was released into the United States, again under these policies, in Louisiana. The simple fact of the matter is that's not what my colleagues want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the young Texas girl who's a cheerleader who was found dead, murdered in the bathtub by her mom when her mom was expecting to see her at a cheerleading event subsequent to that. They don't want to talk about that, and the President of the United States most assuredly will not talk about those Americans tomorrow night in this room. He won't. He will try to hide behind Senate bill. He'll try to hide behind a Senate bill that would have had no chance of passage. They knew it wouldn't pass. He will hide behind a bill that would have codified the mass releases that are endangering the American people, a Senate bill that would have not fixed the parole policies that resulted in the death of Laken Riley. These are all facts that we know to be true, but my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to hide behind the Senate bill because they know that their policies are indefensible. This legislation is one step in order to honor the memory of Laken Riley, and I urge my colleagues to support it.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from Indiana.